be consistent with the lecture series, I'm going to today talk about other forms of subtle energy. But the goal of all this is really other forms of subtle energy that make up the biofield. So the reason we're talking about all these different kinds of subtle energies is because I want to present the picture that the biofield or the aura or the bioenergy of the body, remember the body has energy as well as chemistry, and the bioenergetic side of things is usually not acknowledged. But the biofield, that term biofield it's probably been 8-10 years ago. The National Institute of Health had some kind of a meeting, and they decided to acknowledge the existence of a biofield and to acknowledge the term biofield as the legitimate field. Now, the irony is that term has been the concept of energy in the body has been around for many years. I mean, there are alternative scientists like Reif and those people, von Rickenbach, people that were studying this kind of stuff. That professor from Yale, whose name I just forgot, for a long time, and they were definitely not mainstream, and they were scientists, but they were definitely Harold Burr was the guy from Yale. Can you imagine a professor from Yale talking about energy fields in the body? This is like back in the 40s, 50s, maybe. I mean, now it's going to sort of not really, but the biofield is a legitimate subject. And in the bioelectromagnetics community, which is the community that studies the biological effects of electromagnetic fields, there are a bunch of engineers and biologists who are interested in the energy fields of the body, but not so much the internal ones, but how external electromagnetic fields affect the body, mostly the chemistry of the body or the physiology of the body. But there's a small fraction of them that actually talk about endogenous electromagnetic fields. In other words, electromagnetic fields inside the body. And one or two of them have actually said, well, it's the external electromagnetic fields that resonate with the internal electromagnetic fields, and that's how they work. But that's not really accepted by most of them. Most of them would say that the external electromagnetic fields resonate with ions or electrons, which oscillate at a particular frequency. And the oscillation frequency, if it's close enough to the frequency of the electromagnetic field, there'll be resonance and information transfer between the external field and the internal oscillation of an ion or a molecule even. That's the dogma. So the point I'm making here is that there are internal energy fields of the body, and that's what we're going to start to talk about, because it's these energy fields in the body, in my mind, which regulate and control the biochemistry of the body. And that's what healers are all about, and that's what healing is all about. I mean, there's a role for the chemistry and the biochemistry in the healing process, but the hypothesis of this whole series and the whole field of energy medicine is that the energy fields in the body control and regulate the biochemistry of the body. So if you want to heal the body, you got to work at both levels, shall we say, the chemical level and the energy level. And the drugs, of course, are all about the chemistry, and the alternative energy medicine interventions are all about energy. So that's why we're talking about the energy fields of the biofield. Now, one of the most interesting phenomena about, and certainly we know that electromagnetic fields are a big part of what's going on in the body, but I'm not going to talk much about that because that's kind of well known. And I go where no man has gone before and where no scientist has gone before, except there are scientists who do talk about the biofield and have done lots of research. So in this case, it's not just me. So one of the so biofield therapy, let's start with that, basically means whatever intervention from the outside will affect the biofield of the person being healed. And the most common way to affect the biofield in the body is with a healer on the outside of the body, projecting healing energy into the body, affecting the biofield. And there is evidence for that. There's Kirlian photography, and GDV is a popular method these days, and that it's a form of Kirlian photography, and it's now known as BioWell because the original device is now sold as the BioWell, which measures the energy fields of the 10 fingers. And then there's an algorithm which takes the information from each of the fingers and calculates the biofield and a picture of the biofield of the whole body. And certainly, in certain diseases, the biofield's distorted, and external healing energy can make the abnormal biofield from a diseased person or a sick person back to normal. So that's the evidence that healers can influence the biofield, because that's what this machine measures. But okay, so that's now there are other machines that can also affect the biofield. So before we talk about those machines, we have to talk about the kind of energies that are in the body, and then we can talk about the kind of machines outside which will resonate with the corresponding energies inside. So you have electromagnetic field on the outside resonating with an electromagnetic field inside the body. So that's what this lecture is all about. What kind of energies are in the body? But taking them all as a whole, because the biofield is the sum of all of these different kinds of subtle energies and electromagnetic energies. So there's both. Now, there were several publications that were written maybe 10 years ago about the biofield when the NIH first acknowledged its existence. And they were all about the electromagnetic component. And I'm reading these articles going, oh, this is exciting. They're finally talking about the aura, whatever you want to call it, biofield. But they're only talking about one kind of energy. Hello, what about all the subtle energies that are in the body? No one's talking about that. So I felt very inspired and moved to write a whole article about the subtle energies in the biofield in the body. And I got that published in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine back in 1990 something, in the 90s, I think it was. But if you just punch in my name, Glen Rein, Rein, and Biofield, it'll come up. If it's very technical, I gotta say, I reread it in preparation for this lecture, and I'm going like, whoa, this is pretty technical stuff. I'm writing a scientific article published in a mainstream journal. I got to be scientific. So I'm gonna simplify it for this lecture and give you the essence of it. And admittedly, a lot of it was about scalar energy, but since we all know about scalar energy from the last lecture, this lecture, I'm going to talk about the other forms of subtle energy that make up the biofield. Okay, there we go. Now, one of the cool things that's worth noting is that when healers do their research, their healing, and they project their energy into a person being healed, they can be miles away. And now Larry Dawsey has done a lot of research like that, but not with healers, but with people praying for another person who's sick. And believe it or not, he's an MD, and he managed to get these studies in the scientific literature, which is quite impressive in my mind. So therefore, if the healer can put out some kind of an energy which can travel miles to get to the healee, the energy we're talking about is not electromagnetic, because electromagnetic fields will fade, and by a couple of 100 yards, maybe 1,000 yards, there won't be an electromagnetic field anymore. It will be so weak, it will be insignificant in amplitude, in strength. So this is proof to me that the biofield is composed of subtle energies, energies that act non-locally is the technical term. Electromagnetic fields act locally. You got to be really close to the electromagnetic field and it will have an effect on the body. These kind of subtle energies are non-local and can be miles away. And not only can they be miles away, but they can get to their target instantaneously. You don't have to wait, a half an hour, if the person's, in fact, Edgar Mitchell did experiments like this not when he was on the moon, but when he was going to the moon, when he was in his satellite, in his spaceship, circulating the Earth. They did experiments with projecting this healing energy from that far away to a person on the planet. And there was information transfer that far away. That's, how many thousands of miles, until you get into outer space. So this energy and the information was transferred instantaneously because the energy fields we're talking about travel faster than the speed of light. As you can see on the slide, that's one magic word called superluminal light, luminous light, or super faster than, super fast light, faster than the speed of light. So excuse my slides here. I'm not really giving a formal slide presentation. These are just outlines to remind me of what to say. So, and I'm just going on and on. So anyway, so that's slide number one. Slide number two is just worth to say that in the body there are electromagnetic fields, both direct current and alternating current. The DC electromagnetic fields in the body, direct current, are associated with the acupuncture meridian system. And of course, the meridians have more than just electromagnetic fields that running through them. They have all of the different energies that we're talking about are in the biofield, and they're also in the acupuncture meridian system. Although they haven't been measured, that's my hypothesis. Okay, so the AC current is the current associated with nerves that use electricity, and we all know about that. EEG, electrocardiogram, brain waves, these are all electromagnetic, and they all have a frequency because they're alternating and oscillating, and they all have a frequency associated with them. Another kind of energy in the electromagnetic domain is light. Light is a kind of electromagnetic field. It's just a very high frequency. But the light that's in the body, which is called biophotons, is very different than ordinary photons. Photons are the particles that make up light. Electrons are the particles that make up electromagnetic fields. So the photon outside of the body is very different than the photon inside the body, because the biophotons are very coherent. In other words, they're more like a laser beam, which man can make coherent photons. It's called a laser. But the coherence of the biophotons is 1,000 times, if not more, coherent than anything man can make. So the body has figured out, or God has figured out, whoever made the body in the first place, how to put energy in the body. This is what we're talking about. And in the case of light energy, the photons, the biophotons, are enormously coherent, which is really interesting. And has been well studied by a scientist in Germany called Fritz Popp. And he has lots and lots of publications. He was so far ahead of his time because at the time